Today on the Full Monty, David Goodwin, sixth generation St. Thomas local, former federal Liberal candidate, and a man who looks at spreadsheets the way other people look at puppies. So hold on to your sanity. He's bringing data density and possibly a family tree older than Canada.
Warning: the following video may have language that some viewers may find offensive and others are already offended. Viewer discretion is advised, but not really. No animals were hurt in the making of this 4-hour feature film.
David, thank you so much, sir, for coming on the show.
Nice to be here.
It's great to have you actually in here since we met on Facebook back in the election time.
Yeah, almost a year ago.
I know, eh? Where's the time gone?
It's true, actually.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's every year.
So I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
Your personal thoughts, though.
Okay.
How did you feel about the election?
Well, I'll tell you. I was chair of the Riding Association for 8 years. So I had been involved in elections back to 2015 with Laurie Baldwin Sands. But you see a campaign from a different lens when you're a volunteer.
Correct.
And so I had a sort of trial by fire of learning about campaigns and being involved. But when you jump in as the candidate, it's a completely different situation.
Yeah.
But it was a fantastic experience. And so when I look back at that, we had not just a new leader, but then we also jumped right into a federal election. Mm-hmm. And so for me, once Justin, I should say, resigned, and I knew Mark Carney was going to run, I thought, okay, this is the right leader at the right time.
Okay.
And that motivated me to run.
Now, politics in today's world has really changed.
Yeah, it has.
And it's gotten at times very nasty. And
Yes.
actually families have even split up over politics.
Yeah.
I grew up, growing up in Mitchell, our neighbor was Hugh Edigoffer. Okay. And he was a Liberal. He was the Speaker of the House in Toronto, and my parents were Liberal. Once I kind of left home and got on my own, I was in the Grand Bend area, which was orange, basically. So NDP is kind of where I went for a long time with them. Moved to this area, 15 some odd years ago, and of course we're blue. Blue's a very strong thing down here. So you had quite a fight, trying to gain a lot of blue people over to red.
Yes.
I know there are a lot of red here. Every area has a lot of people, but I only went blue, and it wasn't because the party was the one that always seems to rule, but I've always voted for the person.
Yes.
And and I will admit, when you were running, I said to my other half, Jesus, I don't know, this David guy, local and your history and everything here, which we're going to get into a little bit about that. But, I was really tempted to go that way because
come to the other side.
I didn't know you well enough yet to go, right?
Yeah.
And so I rely a lot on my friends and people that are even in the party. Andrew Lawton ran. I've had Andrew on the show, and I've told Andrew right to his face, and I said, I did not support you at the time. I went with Anthony Shields. I was up in Elmer when that night, that debate, and there was a whole bunch of us that kind of left early and didn't really like that whole situation. But I said, but Andrew, you won the election, and let's see, how we can go. I know that every party person running or whatever, any candidate, there are always certain things that your party is going to do or say that you don't agree with. Yeah. We had that with Jeff Urich and Karen Vecchio, and look what happened. Like they got out of it because they did feel so strongly that this is not where I want to be.
Yeah.
And man, I honor them for that. Mm-hmm. I mean, to stay true to that.
Yeah.
So no matter what party you are, there are always certain things that, and even in PC, I mean, as I call Daddy Doug, no, don't even get me started on a lot of that stuff, because there's a lot of directions there that's not where we should be at all. So, and then you get in the federal side of it, and I was pretty disappointed in the whole when Pierre Poilievre said if he had the power at that time, he was going to squash everything that we were doing here. He would have shut that down. Like, he was totally against all of that. Yeah. Now, farmland appropriation, of course, I grew up on the farm. It's sad. Yeah. It is very sad to see farmland go.
No question.
We shouldn't be getting rid of farmland, but I mean, as the world grows and population grows, I mean, there's going to be some generation long after us, David, that they don't have farm-fed animals anymore. It's all lab grown.
Very true. Yeah. In our city, right? You can see it in St. Thomas, Central Elgin, everywhere around St. Thomas, the development into farmland.
Yeah.
Because of the expansion.
Huge.
And it's, that's the whole debate about housing in high rise.
Yep.
Right? In terms of.
But that's where one thing I like a lot more is, let's use the hospital for an example. They're talking about building a new hospital, that we need this and yada, yada, yada. I've always been a firm believer is, why are we not using the assets that we currently have? So here, this paper is your blueprint of the hospital property. So instead of going elsewhere and building this beautiful building or whatever, but even if we had to tear this down, and why can we just not go up higher? So our footprint is no bigger, but we can accommodate way more in the same spot. Yeah. And I like that with apartment buildings. So we have the 14-story one now at Walmart.
That's right.
Now, don't get me started on the rents. I don't like them either. I mean,
there's the new building at Elma as well.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. They got the second
tower built.
That's right. Now, I think the one at Walmart, wasn't there not supposed to be 3 in total?
There was. I saw a for sale sign on one piece of the property, so I don't know if that's going to continue. I mean, things have changed since that was first announced, but hopefully they do. It's a great location for a residential
maybe
complex.
Jeff House, I could get him in from the Highlands, the company that he owns, that building, and maybe we could talk about.
It's a great repurpose of the property, the residential area, but also all of those independents, right?
Yeah.
So it's a crazy parking lot to get in.
Oh,
sometimes.
Isn't that awful?
But great businesses.
Yeah. That whole little service road there when you come up by Wendy's, and they said they can't put lights there because it's too close to Talbot Street.
Yeah, that's right.
So I don't really know what the answer. It's probably going to be a redesign. You know what would have been probably at some point would have been a roundabout in there.
That's true. That is true.
That would have been an actual prime spot for it because of that close proximity to Talbot. Yeah. And if they get another tower up in there, or that current one full, that's a lot of people coming in and out of there again, right? Yeah. But all right, so let's go into your little bit of your background there, David. So we talked about the people in party and all that stuff. But like I did want to say is, I don't understand why people are tearing themselves apart. Like, I mean, as a PC member, can sit and absolutely have a coffee. Well, we're doing it right now. We're chatting. Like, why can't you do that? Just because I've always said, though, I really appreciate people that actually put their name forward and do
no question.
It, right?
It is, I think part of it is social media and 24/7 news, right? We are so connected today. And in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, it sort of has created this environment where it's really ramped things up. And you're right, you should be able to have debate. As I was mentioning earlier, I have a wide group of friends, and there are really passionate conservative friends that I have, liberal friends, NDP, PPC. I'm friends with everybody who's running in this riding and other parties, because we're all Canadians, and there really isn't a line about party. We're all passionate. We all want to represent the riding, help the people who live here, and it should never be that I can't talk to you because you're a conservative, you can't talk to me because I'm a liberal. I'm in a vinyl group that we meet every 6 weeks, and one of my best friends is a passionate conservative. I love him dearly. And we can have great discussions, and then
I bet you the teasing is pretty good too.
Oh, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. It's but you're right. In today, when I was growing up, John Wise was our MP, right? And I've spoken about this. John Wise was really my mentor, and he was a friend of my grandparents. And in grade 8 at Homedale, you would go to Ottawa every spring. It was your grade 8 trip.
Okay.
So we did a 2-day trip to Ottawa, and John came out and met us right in front of the Parliament buildings. Gave us the little Canadian flag pins.
Nice.
I'd mentioned who my grandparents were. And so he got us to go into the House of Commons during question period so that we could watch. And he gave us a lot of time. And so John Wise, I've always said, is the model for me of an MP. Because loved by Conservatives, loved by Liberals, NDP, because he really was somebody who worked locally. I said this a lot during the campaign. Karen reminds me of John. But the same, I look at Gar and I look at Joe and I look at Ken Monty, all really passionate locals. Joe is one of those guys who will talk on any side of the fence. And so as an MP, that's really one of the most important things is you have to work across the aisle. You have to work with all parties. But you're right, today it's becoming, again, with Facebook and social media, it's about gotcha politics. And it's unfortunate because you would hear stories. I heard this for years. They used to call them Happy Wednesdays in Ottawa. And so Wednesdays, the House would close early, shut down early at around 5 o'clock. And so MPs would go out for dinner. And this was into the 90s. And you could go into restaurants on Wednesday night and you would see tables of MPs with Conservatives and Liberals and NDP. Because it wasn't partisan like that. And at the end of the day, we're all the same in terms of if you're an MP. You're just there to help the people in your riding, to help drive policy. You may disagree with someone, but it's how do we help, right? And that doesn't exist as much, and it's too bad. And you see that in the U.S. as well with their politics, the division. It works much better when we get along, right?
Down there,
and and so I have great affection for Karen Vecchio. I thought she was a great MP. And people would ask me, why didn't you run earlier? And I said, because we had a great MP. For me, it wasn't, we need to have a Liberal MP necessarily. It's we need to have a great MP. And Karen was. And so there was no interest in running because it's just, do we have good representation?
I think you're saying that, Kay, we want a good MP. And probably at that time when you were looking at what party was you going to rep, probably for you, then the Liberal Party just had more in line of the way you wanted, that you were like the things. Is that kind of how like they were the one that your desire and where your direction goes kind of line more with them than?
Yeah, a little bit. You were talking about leaders make a difference. So I was a big fan of Brian Maroney. Really like Brian, but I also like John Turner. Right. So leaders make a difference. I would talk about Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre is very different than Aaron O'Toole. Right? Just as Mark Carney is very different than Justin. And so for me, it really is about the leader in terms of who you're going to commit to and their approach. That's why I like Mark, and that's why I decided to run. But for me, I talk about this a lot. There's 3 values that my mom taught me when I was a kid. We grew up in Union, and one was you have to respect people. They're really simple values, but not always shared today. You have to listen, right? Everybody has a story. And when you don't listen, you don't hear people. And you have to help people. Everybody needs help at one time in their life. And so when I look sort of the liberal values, that sort of was the party that I gravitated to. Because sometimes what liberals do is they look at policy that's good for the country and not necessarily good for them. And so that's kind of where it got me into the Liberal Party and drives me. But it's the leader at this point. Leaders make a difference, right? And you can see a fundamental change between Justin and Mark Carney on lots of policy, right?
How, speaking of Carney, with what's happening with our tariffs and Donald Trump, do you think, is Carney kind of, would you like to see him gone a little bit harder against Trump? I mean, this is a very tricky thing, right? So
delicate one.
It is basically the, until you really fight back against a bully before they stop. But, Trump is a pretty strong individual. So Is there, do you cave in? Do you, what would you have liked to seen? A little more fight out of us, or?
Well, Trump is so unpredictable. So it's, on one hand, you want to see a little bit more fight, but then you understand what the consequences of that will be, because he's so reactionary.
Yes.
So, you can see Donald Trump with the Davos speech. First day, he was like, no, I heard good things about it. After that, he was like, I'm putting tariffs on. And when you put tariffs on, there's a real consequence to Canadians. So it's the balance that you want to stand up to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But you also have to be careful, especially in this riding, that you don't hurt Canadians, right? You don't hurt additional tariffs on autos, on steel, all of the plants in St. Thomas that support U.S. and auto industry.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of me deep inside that he says, I want you to stand up and not take this. A little bit of Doug Ford when he poured out the Crown Royal.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's politics in politics. Yeah. And so what I would say is a lot of people talk about why he hasn't had a trade deal yet, because Kuzma is coming up. The reality is, I think it's a smart approach, because there is no deal with Donald Trump. So if any political party or any leader thinks they can go into negotiations with Donald Trump and come out with a trade agreement that is, what was achieved with Moroni in the free trade agreement, and has been adjusted over the previous years, because it's a give and take. So we give something to the Americans on trade, but they give us something as well. So we all get a balance. Donald Trump doesn't work that way. He's not interested in saying, okay, we're going to give you access, in terms of cars and what percentage of parts you can supply us. He doesn't want us to produce any parts or sell anything to the U.S. He wants to make it. And so how do you negotiate with somebody like that? Because there's nothing we get. He wants access to our dairy and milk and our cheese and other industries without giving us anything back. So I think Carney is taking the right approach, which is it's a very slow, methodical, right? So he was waiting for the Supreme Court to come down on the decision that Trump and his tariffs he doesn't have the authority. Now Trump is shifting position to try and puff out his chest on tariffs. And so I think he's taking the right approach, where you just got to stay committed and not get into that bravado fight, even though lots of us would like him to do it. I don't think it gets you very far.
The one thing I don't understand is when he kept talking about how all these countries were ripping them off. Of course. And ripping them off terribly. And Canada was one of the worst ones, he says. And yet in that same breath, I'm like, Donald, the last deal, you made the deal. You signed it.
Yeah, he said it was a great deal at the time.
How could we be ripping you off? Because
that's right.
You were in agreement to that.
Yeah, so that's because he wants everything that we produce and sell to the U.S. As well as lumber, all our resources. He wants that to be produced in the U.S. So you can see it with car companies that are now moving production lines from Canada to the U.S., which is why I've had discussions with people about the trade deals, because you've got to look to other countries. You can't rely on the U.S. The challenge with trade deals that Mark's going to have is, I always say that we're in the Amazon society now. We want everything tomorrow.
Yeah, we do.
Trade deals take 1 to 3 to 5 years to come to full fruition. Yeah. And it takes time. So he'll get there. Other governments will have that benefit as well, but it doesn't happen tomorrow.
No, it does not. Yeah. It does not. It just baffles me the way it's been going. But Canada and the Commonwealth.
Yes.
I've always thought, why? You know what? Let's not turn our back on the States, but let's just kind of turn around for a while.
Pivot.
And let's turn more to the Commonwealth and all our countries that we're all part of that British Empire.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
There's many places that we could be associating business with and not have to worry about one country.
Yeah.
And Canada is a very powerful country.
Yeah.
It should stand up for itself more.
Yeah.
At one time, we were a powerhouse.
Sure. Absolutely.
I've always believed that the reason why the United States is a powerhouse and they say that they're the best in the world is because the world lets them be. If the rest of the countries turn around and said, no, you're done.
Yeah.
They're done.
Yeah, it's true.
If the rest of the world does that,
Yeah, that's an interesting thing about the Commonwealth, because you're absolutely right. There was a trade deal that he just did with Ireland. India now, just in the last couple of weeks, has come out about our natural resources, because who do we sell to, right?
Yeah.
They're a billion people country, and have very limited natural resources. Right?
Yeah.
So there's partners out there. China, China is an interesting one, because it scares people, because about doing more trade with China.
Yeah.
But as I tell people, when you go into Walmart, everything we
Everything's
buy
China.
is China.
Of course
So
it is.
the fear it definitely needs to be always measured and part of the conversation.
Yeah.
But the one thing with the States is it's so volatile. You don't know what today will be compared to tomorrow. Now, I always say there's life after Donald Trump, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Technically, this is his last term.
Yeah.
Or legally or constitutionally.
Yep.
And so there will be a president after Donald Trump, and it usually swings. So I would assume that there's better chances it's Democrat, and that the world can kind of rebalance. But I don't think Canada can wait that long, right? And I think you have to do something. And so I think, one of my conservative friends said, well, Mark Carney's just always flying all over the country or the world. And I said, that's true, but you have to get trade deals. And that's really what it's about. It's about building new relationships. That's not with the U.S., because you just can't rely on them. And I think that's an important direction.
Well, I think if I'm going to come and do a deal with you, and I live in France, and we're doing a big business deal, you would feel way more open to everything if I make the effort and come see you.
No question.
Than if we just do it over computer or phone.
It has to be face-to-face, no question. And these are complex negotiations, and it doesn't happen just on one visit. And when the president or the prime minister, when trade deals are announced, they've been working on those for months in advance. The leaders of the country only come to the signing once it's been finalized, and it doesn't happen in 3 days.
No.
But we do have to branch out, and so I'm pleased with that.
David, I just wish people respected more of the office than just who the person is that's in it. Because even when Trudeau was in there, the nastiness that came out in a lot of people, and I thought, still represent that office nicely and respect the office. You may not like the person that's in the office.
Oh, of course.
And you have full given right to not like that person, but you should always respect that office.
It's true. I just watched Band of Brothers again. You ever seen the series?
Yep.
And there's a great scene where Major Winters, at the end of the movie, the person who trained him didn't get along with him. He wouldn't salute him, and he said, "You salute the rank, not the man."
Right.
And that's and I watched that moment, and I thought that's what politics is as well, right? Yep. It's the same for Andrew. Andrew is member of Parliament, and there are cabinet ministers and there are prime ministers. You respect that position. And
my dad said that a long time ago growing up when he was a cop, and he used to talk about police getting killed. And he said, a guy that shoots a police officer isn't shooting the person, he's shooting that uniform.
Right.
They don't care about the person inside that uniform. They just want to kill the uniform.
Right.
And that's what it is. So anyway, there's a little bit of political talk. So David, you're a sixth generation Goodwin here in St. Thomas.
Yes. Yeah.
So how is that deep family history, how's that shaped you into what you see this community today?
Well, it's a sense of pride, right? So my family had opened up Goodwin Furniture in 1870, and then it was open until 1970. So I grew up with this rich sense of history. Don Cousins was sort of a mentor when I was growing up, because I always loved history. And so back then you didn't have the internet where you could go on and Google everything and find out things. So Don really got me involved in the Historical Society, got me interested in history, taught me a lot about my family history. But I really grew up with a pride of watching St. Thomas develop and the family being part of it. And so that was an interesting part for me, because I would go up on Talbot Street, and I would look at where Goodwin Furniture was originally built, which was across from Shoppers on Talbot near the post office. It was a 4-story building, and then they moved down the street, and about 1910, Van Pelt's used to be in the building.
Oh, really?
And so that pride of history has always connected me to St. Thomas because you learn about everything about the city. And it was a vibrant city, really interesting past. And so, when I was growing up, and went to university and started working in Toronto, I thought, well, where do I want to live? And, I was downtown Toronto, and I remember the day my twin brother called me. I was in my office, and he said the old family home in St. Thomas is for sale. So my great-great-grandfather, who started Goodwin Furniture, built a house on Gladstone, and it was always in the family. So as a child, I would go there to visit my great aunts, and I again just learning about the rich history of all the family members who have lived there and all the stories, and that's where I started to fall in love with old homes, architecture, and renovation and restoration. And so in '92, my great aunt, passed away. And so the estate sold the house. And then 10 years later, that family put it up for sale. That's when my brother called me in Toronto. Said the old house is for sale. And I remember thinking, I looked out the window at Toronto Island, and I thought, this has been a fun place to live, but it's time to go home.
Wow.
Because St. Thomas is my home. And so so I ended up buying the house, rented it out for a couple of years, and then moved back. And,
Nice.
But that deciding to come back to St. Thomas is because this is where I was born, and this is where I was raised, and this is where my family roots are.
Okay.
And there's no place I'd rather be.
So what pulled you away from the furniture? Like, why didn't you take over the business? And
Oh, well, I was.
What happened
It
there?
closed in 1970, so
Okay.
I was only
Oh,
4.
You would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And
Okay. Well, I guess you're not running at a 4,
well,
are you?
it's interesting because St. Thomas was really changed. The '60s, it was very fundamentally different in St. Thomas, and
Yeah.
so I asked my dad once. I said, "Well, what was the change in the business model for the furniture?" And he said, "One of the things that where furniture really changed is you used to have exclusivity to brands. So Goodwin's would have Vilas, which was a really popular brand in the '50s and '60s, and Jennings, who they were both very good friends.
Okay.
They had a different, Rockton was very similar but different brands. And then late '50s, the manufacturing companies got rid of exclusivity.
Okay.
So now you could buy Vilas anywhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And Sealy, you could buy Sealy at Goodwin's.
Yeah.
And Jennings had a different brand. And now you could get it anywhere.
Yep.
And then the other part was they used to do store credit. And then in the '60s, many companies got away from credit, like in terms of just house credit, and then you would go to finance it. And that fundamentally changed the business as well. So
Okay.
by the '70s,
Yeah.
by 1968 or '69, I think my grandfather was now 66 and was ready to wind down,
Okay.
and it closed.
Makes sense.
But that's where my love of woodworking, my dad wasn't really a woodworker. And my grandfather passed when I was young, but because of that history, growing up with his furniture, the family furniture, and my great-great-grandfather's hand tools, it just drew me into
Nice.
woodworking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I remember wood shop in
Yeah.
school. I kind of
Mhm.
enjoyed it, but making those bowls on the lathes,
Oh, yeah,
different
yeah,
things that
yeah.
we did. But
It teaches you a lot of skills.
yeah,
I loved wood shop in high school.
yeah. I've always loved the smell of the wood.
Me too.
Like all the years working at Gearlinks out in the lumberyard and that,
Oh, yeah.
I always love walking in those barns and smelling
Yeah.
the different woods and stuff.
Yeah, it's for me, it's building things with your hands.
Yeah.
Right. That to
Yeah.
me is one of the great things. And so when I went to university after high school, went to Wilfrid Laurier, studied history, took
Okay.
a minor in business.
Thanks to Don Cousins.
Yeah, thanks. It really was.
Yeah.
Don was the guy who
I like Don. I miss
learned
Don.
a lot, and George Thorman as well, right?
Okay.
Yeah, George had a lot of family history that he shared, and
Yeah.
great stories. And then when I graduated, I thought, okay, what am I going to do? And I remember I was in Muskoka, and I saw this gentleman who made 19th century furniture by hand,
Okay.
specifically Windsor chairs.
Okay.
So no power tools. He went out in the woods, cut a red oak down, maple tree down, and just with hand tools, steam box, spoke shave, trebuchet, draw knife, spoon bits, made beautiful furniture. And so I thought, you know what? I thought that, because power tools I never liked at that time, because you can cut your fingers off. Hand tools, the most you're to get is maybe you need a Band-Aid. Yeah. So I've always been drawn to hand tools because there's more skill and there's more beauty in a hand plane than a table saw. Yeah. I now have a table saw and power tools, but I still go back to my hand tools. Yeah. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna open up a furniture store. I had very little woodworking at that point. I had built a canoe in high school with my shop teacher, carved a bowl, but I was really passionate about it. And so in Sparta, I graduated in April and opened up a furniture store called the Village Chairmaker, and I made American Windsor chairs for 4 years by hand. Okay. I did a lot of teaching, had students from across Canada, BC, Newfoundland. And then after 4 years, I made absolutely no money whatsoever. No. It was a real struggle because you're making very high-end furniture.
How do you put a price on that?
Yeah, it's a passion. My mom lived in Sparta, so that allowed me the opportunity to I had the store right across from the tea room. Okay. Wonderful experience.
Is that where Peter McDermott's store is now? The Bear Friend Factory, Whistle Stop Peddlers, right across from the tea room.
It is, but it was
onto the left side of it there.
The left side of it.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. And so then I taught a course to a gentleman who was an investment manager, and he said, he gave me the advice to apply for a job in Toronto, entry level at a financial company, and I said, okay. And so I still do a lot of woodworking, restoration. Yeah. So the house I bought, I call it the money pit, but it
Tom Hanks movie?
Yeah. I always say you have to be handy or rich, and I'm handy. Okay. But it's, again, because of that sense of history of the house, of St. Thomas. I've spent the last 10 years restoring it. It's been a
You know what, though, from the outside of it, though, I look at you and I'll say, you know what, not money-wise, but you are very rich because you have that history here, the connection, the family, the stores and just all that. That's what makes a person rich. Yeah. Is when they can look back on their life and see greatness. Like just that connection. You got to be proud of your name. My dad always said, be proud of your name. And don't care what anybody else ever thinks or what they do. Just you do what you do and be proud of where you came from. And
when I would knock on doors, I would meet people who still knew Goodwin Furniture. Okay. Or knew my mom. My mom was a public school teacher as well. So I would meet a lot of students. But the very last day of the campaign, my last door knock, I knocked on the door, and it was this elderly woman. And she said, no, I know who you are. And she said, come in, I want to show you something. So she invited me in, and she had a cabinet that my great-great-grandfather made.
Oh, wow.
And had the tag on the back, and I thought, what a fitting end to the campaign. This is the last person I'm knocking on their door. Yeah. And she's telling me that connection to the family. I looked at the piece, and I thought, it was a nice way to end the campaign.
So nice. Yeah. You know, I can't believe that your family, though, never got in the funeral business.
Oh, they did.
Did they? Yeah, Here we go.
So Goodwin Furniture started in 1870. So you're right. Furniture and Undertaking went side by side. So they did Undertaking until about 1890. Oh, and then the story in the family is that my great-great-grandfather, Samuel Goodwin, had just no love for it and had stopped the business. But the original store, the photos we have, there's a big sign, down the side saying furniture, and then on the other side of the door, Undertaking.
But do you have that photograph?
I do.
Okay, will you send it to me?
I will.
I'll put it in this as we're talking about it right now, and I'll put it in.
So here's the funny story. So when the house was for sale, when the owners I bought it from, one of the things I love about open houses is you get to go in every square corner of a house because you're thinking about buying it. So one of the things I said is I want to go in the attic, and because you want to check insulation and everything else and condition of the roof. So I went up in the attic, and there were 3 coffins. And so but not what I call the cowboy western
Okay.
coffin, right? But just rectangular coffins.
Okay.
But they were covered in cloth, decorative cloth, and then the top had a curved top stuffed with straw.
Oh, wow.
And I remember
Okay.
looking at them, and I was quite shocked. So we opened them, and they were just full of quilts and blankets. So basically, they
Wow.
just used them for storage. And I thought, well, that makes sense. You're making just a box, a blanket box.
Yeah.
A little bit longer,
Yeah.
and you really just have a coffin. So there's not a
Wow.
difference in skill. And so I took two of them down, and there's still one up there. But at my roofer, when I had to get my roof done, it has a widow's walk, a flat platform.
Okay.
So there's a set of stairs in the attic that goes you can go and walk on the top of the thing.
Very cool.
And he said to me, "Why do you have a coffin in your attic?" And I said, "You're one of the few who recognize." He said, "Oh, I knew right away." And so
What a historical piece.
yeah,
though.
yeah, and it's so the one in the attic still has the cloth on it and the straw.
Wow.
And, yeah, it just kind of
That'd be
so-
something though if you or could even loan it at some time, but to the museum,
to the museum.
just so that
Yeah,
they can have it on
yes.
display sometime and
it's-
give you the credit for it, and then bring it home when they're done. But
It's old. It's the one I removed the fabric because the fabric had disintegrated and
Okay.
it's old age pine, and so when I sanded it and oiled up, it was this beautiful color, and that became my coffee table.
oh, is it
in my living
really?
room.
Wow.
And I wouldn't tell anybody what it was, but
Yeah.
they just think it's a coffee.
Well, that's cool because I just thought of it when I grew up. Mitchell,
Yeah.
we had Lockhart Funeral Home
Oh, yes.
and Lockhart
Yeah.
Furniture. Jeff
Side by
Lockhart
side.
that runs it now.
Yeah.
I went to school with Jeff and his dad Paul, and then we had Heath and Leslie Funeral Home in Mitchell that they had their furniture store too. And my dad
yes,
used to
that's
we used
right.
to go there.
It's an interesting combination.
It is
Yeah.
furniture and funeral.
Yeah. It's
And
yeah.
then I remember as an older child going to Stratford to Hudson's and
Okay.
getting furniture and everything
Yeah.
in there. But you talk about how I would love to be able to go to you and say, David, I need, this kitchen set and whatever, and you absolutely hand make it. But I mean, you go to a store now and you might pay, say, $149 for that chair.
Yes.
But you can't sell what you're making for that price. But
No,
yet,
no.
but how can you say, well, it's $1,000 a chair?
It's true. It's true.
So
it's
in reality, it is.
Yeah.
Your time, sweat, tears,
Yeah.
the knowledge of going into that, the sturdiness of it, but
That's
you
right.
just can't charge that.
No, you can't, and that's the challenge for all artisans is
Yeah.
really getting the full value of their time and their experience. So the furniture I would make, specifically the chairs, they might look very similar to that hoopback chair there, but fundamentally are built different.
Yeah.
There's no nails, no screws, but it's using green wood technology, which is where it's wet, and dry wood.
Okay.
It's using wedges. It's using stretching. So legs and chairs always come apart.
Correct.
But that's because they glue them together.
Yeah.
So naturally, your weight over time pushes out the legs.
Yeah.
But when chairs were made back in the 1700s, they weren't clamped together; they were stretched, and so that's why they're called side stretchers, center stretcher. There's a mathematical formula, but when you're putting it together, that last leg, it's hard to get in because you've stretched it to the max,
Okay.
so that when you sit in it, those legs can't
There's nowhere else for them to go.
So I have a chair in my house that's from 1793
Wow.
in the States, out of Kennebunk, Maine. But there's a lot of historic Windsor chairs still around because of that technology. But back to your point,
Yeah.
it's hard to get the value for your time